we have been following the Chicago Symphony strike. We've been following that pretty intensely, and it's been interesting to watch unfold. A quick recap. The symphony musicians in Chicago went on strike because they were not being paid on a scale that other world symphonies were being paid. They're right on scale with New York or Boston. They were not getting compensated the same as those symphonies were getting compensated. Were they still compensated well? Yeah, they were getting paid pretty well, but they were getting screwed over compared to other symphonies. And this really matters because the Chicago Symphony is an end game for most musicians. It's not where you start. It's not like your first gigs in the Chicago Symphony. Usually, when you start out in an industry like that, you're working for smaller symphonies that do not pay that much, where you're struggling to get by. You might have to play in 2 or 3 symphonies to pay your bills, and you're just trying to make ends meet. You pay your dues, and then eventually, if you're good enough, presumably, you get into something like the Chicago Symphony. So when they screw people over that have made it to the top in a creative field, that's when trickle down works. That's when trickle down is an applied theory, when it comes to the trickle down of screwing people. Meaning, if you screw people in the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, you're going to screw people in the Fort Wayne Symphony Orchestra. Or, I'm just thinking of smaller markets. I'm sure if Fort Wayne has a symphony orchestra, it's fine. I'm just, So that's where trickle down actually applies when it comes to screwing over creative professionals, or any professionals, but especially creative professionals, from the top down. That's what happened in my world. In my world of stand-up comedy, the pay scale used to be at a certain level. Then they started messing with stuff a little bit, and now it has affected the pay scale from the top to the bottom. And now you used to be able to make a living as an MC in stand-up comedy. Now MC spots, which is the opening spot, those spots are seldomly even paid now. Sometimes they still are, but a lot of times they're not even paid. Used to be you could make a living in that spot. Not a great living. You had to work your way up quickly, but you can make a living. Now, and there's a number of reasons for that. It's not just, but it also has to do with the trickle down of screwing people over. That's a big factor. There were other factors. It got oversaturated. It became a different industry. At one point, there were more jobs for comedians than there were comedians to fill them. So those were all factors too. It's not like it was a one-factor issue, but the fact that they slowly started screwing the comics over and it trickled down, that's a factor. All right. So here's what happened. The strike ended. Christina shares this. Boom. Here's what's going on. Chicago Symphony ends its longest strike with a pension change. Okay, so what's going on here? The longest strike in the Chicago Symphony Orchestra's 128-year history ended Saturday, when the orchestra's musician and board agreed to a new contract that will shift the players from their defined pension to a defined contribution plan similar to a 401k. All right? The proposed change to that pension plan was the major sticking point in a musician strike that lasted nearly 7 weeks. All right, so Rahm Emanuel helped this deal. So here was the issue. The orchestra's management had said that the existing pension plan, which guaranteed the players a set amount in retirement, had grown too costly. The players countered that the proposed alternative, in which the orchestra would put a set amount of money into individual retirement accounts, would shift investment risk to the musicians. Okay? So the two sides came up with a compromise. The orchestra's management said that when current players switch to the newly defined contribution plan and agree to invest their retirement accounts prudently, the orchestra will guarantee that their benefits at retirement will be the same as what they would have earned under the old pension plan, which is being frozen. So basically, they're guaranteeing, hey, the amount you see in retirement, we're not going to mess with. We're going to go to these accounts. It's going to be more similar to a 401k plan, like a matching plan or something similar like that, but you're not going to see less when you retire. And the players were like, okay, we can take that. All right. So now here's a little bit of a concern. The guarantee will not be available to new players. Those hired after July 1st, 2020 will immediately move into the new plan, in which 7.5% of their base salary will be placed into retirement accounts. Now, the other major issue was wages. The new contract will include raises in each of the 5 years of the contract. 2, 2.5, 3.5, 3.5%, which will bring the base salary to $181,000, $272 in the final year. Okay. So, it sounds like it's a deal that the musicians are happy with, which is good. The little bit of concern is the fact that, players that are already in the system, they're going to be protected when it comes to retirement. But new players, they're just kind of going to be part of this new system, which hopefully the new system is still fair and still gives players a nice retirement. We're not exactly sure how it's going to look when it's unrolled yet because it's new. But it kind of looks like they're like, all right, new players, they're just in the new system, but we want to make sure we're covered. So, that's a bit concerning, but it looks like they, their big thing was they wanted their wages to be on par with other same-tier symphonies. And they got that. It looks like they got that. Their wages have been raised, so it looks like they're now on par with the other symphonies. And hopefully this new method of doing the retirement, going from a pension to a more 401k style retirement fund, still benefits the players. All right, so there you go. The Chicago strike is over, and the people won. So looking at this broader, what does this mean? Well, this means that there's power in strikes. There's power in unity. And strikes are contagious. You haven't heard about this strike much. One, because I understand it's a very niche thing. I understand that. It's a very niche thing. I get that. But they don't talk about strikes much. They don't talk about the teacher strikes much when they're going on. When I say they, I mean the corporate media. Why? Because they know how contagious strikes are. Strikes are contagious. They're more contagious than the common cold, but they're way cooler. And that should be their slogan. Strikes, as contagious as the common cold, but way freaking cooler. This is the type of thing you want to catch. You want to catch a strike, baby? We're going to stand up for what we deserve. We want our wages. We want our pensions. We want to be treated right. We want fair retirement plans. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make